Well, hello and welcome wherever you are, and for joining us here at this special Facebook Live Soldier On event. I'm Hugh Riminton. It's great to have your company for the next hour, an hour in which we hope to give you some answers to your questions about how we can support you at Soldier On. We have three senior staff members from Soldier On here able to talk about things that they do, the things that we believe at Soldier On are of use, but we're only as good as the feedback we receive. So this is a chance for you to talk about the stuff that you think you need, tell us how we can do things better, but also learn from us what Soldier On can do. My name's Hugh Riminton, and I've been privileged to have seen ADF troops in action dating back to Somalia in my case. It's nearly 30 years now. I've seen our forces in all kinds of theatres all around the world, and I was involved in Soldier On pretty much from the beginning as a startup member of the board. I'm now an ambassador with Soldier On. It remains a cause deeply close to my heart, and like everyone you're going to hear from today, we are so committed to making this organization work for you. The theme for today: how can we at Soldier On support you? And the three people we're going to have to talk to you today include our Pathways Director, John Hardgrave, our Psychology Services Manager, Joe Losinno, and our Social Connections Manager, Sarah Hartley. I'm going to introduce them individually in just a moment, but just so that you know how you can involve yourself, if you've got questions or comments, please send them to us. You can post questions in the comments below on your screen. It should be visible there for you. But if for some reason that doesn't seem to work for you, you can send them anonymously if you want to the Soldier On Facebook inbox. That's another option. So the Soldier On Facebook inbox, or just post your questions probably more simply on the comments section just below. But John Hardgrave, if I can start with you, you're the Pathways Director. Before I ask you what that is, I want to know who you are. Why are you involved in Soldier On? What drew you to it?
Thanks, Hugh, and hello everyone out there in Facebook land. As Hugh mentioned, I am the Pathways Program Director, which looks after all the education and employment programs within Soldier On. But who am I? That's a great question, and what drew me to such a role. Look, I spent 17 years in defence. I was an infantry soldier. I served multiple tours through Solomon Islands, East Timor and Afghanistan, including some domestic operations such as Queensland Flood Assist. I spent most of my career in Queensland, luckily enough, especially at 6 and 8, 9 area. And when I went to separate from defence, I was one of the lucky ones, went private contracting and had the opportunity to study. So when the contracting ended, I managed to be able to move myself into corporate Australia in the back of the education I'd done. What I found was a lot of my peer group especially were coming to me seeing my success in the civilian world and saying, what have you done? What can I do? And I found myself spending a lot of time supporting a lot of mates and a lot of people who were referred through to me into, just simple things like resumes or using my industry connections. It came to a point where the corporate world didn't fit with my value base, and I saw a job going for Soldier On in Queensland, and I looked at the description and it just really spoke to me because it was doing exactly everything I was doing anyway. But here's an opportunity to do it in a more formalised, structured program with an organisation that had a great reputation. So I ended up at Soldier On. And I've got a passion for supporting our veterans and their families, especially making that transition into meaningful employment or into further education.
So I think the name Pathways probably is the clue, but in your own words, what is the Pathways program?
Thanks, Hugh. The Pathways program, as I mentioned previously, covers off the E and the L of our HELP model. So E being employment and the L being learning opportunities. We call it learning opportunities, not education, because HEAP isn't as good as HELP on an acronym, and we love acronyms being military. So to cover off on the first point, which is our employment programs, I have staff nationally that work with veterans and their family members to get them that next role, whether it's them coming out of defence or it's they've been out of defence for a while and they need to move into a new role, or it's family members posting into a new location. We work with them from everything from, building resumes, interview techniques, searching and discovering what they want to do post-defence. We work with them through a whole bunch of programs to get them, job ready or ready for that next step. And then on the other side of that, we work with what we call our pledge companies. So the Soldier On Pledge companies they are organisations that demonstrate their commitment for veterans and their families in collaboration with our program. So that's companies that are going to offer opportunities for, interview, director interview and feedback for roles within their organisations. We have some fantastic supporters that are on our website that you can go look at who's engaged with us on that program. So I guess that's a very brief synopsis of what we do. I want to make sure everyone else gets a turn to speak here, Hugh, as well. And then we've got our learning opportunities or our education. And with our education, we partner with RTOs and universities to upskill our veterans and their family members to get the job they want. Look, I was an infantry soldier, I get it. Came out of the combat corps. I remember when I left defence, I got a Certificate 3 in infantry operations. That Certificate 3 in infantry operations won't get me a job in the corporate world or driving a forklift in a warehouse. But part of what we do is break down that skill set and those skills that we're really good at defence and translate that into the civilian speak, because there's so many skill sets and so many opportunities that we come out of defence with that we just don't sell well. But then the formal side of that is working with the RTOs and universities to upskill veterans into some of those roles that need an education background. So I'll keep it there and short. I could talk about it all day.
Yeah, and I think there's a really interesting point you made in there is that Soldier On helps current and former ADF personnel, but also their families. And that's a really important point you made there is that people move around the place. Sometimes it's overlooked that's an area that we can help. And if the family's happy, that goes a long way to making everything else happy. Sarah Hartley, can I bring you in? You're the social connections manager. What brought you to it?
Thank you, Hugh, and hello to everybody out there today. I have been working in the veteran space for ever since I finished having children. I am a spouse of a current serving member, so I've been living this lifestyle for nearly 17 years and following him around the countryside and moving and with babies and all the rest of it. So I completely understand what it's like being a family member supporting their member. So I'm really passionate about the family side of the organisation and supporting spouses, but absolutely I love working with veterans and their families and being able to provide them with some really amazing activities. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
And so what works most in your experience in terms of keeping people connected?
I think definitely providing them with a massive array of activities that they can get involved in. There's not, a one-size-fits-all with veterans. I think, and their families, everyone's looking for different things to engage in, and social connections is really important to our, our well-being. So, we work really hard to look at an array of different activities that we can provide them, from a regular coffee catch up to, a deep sea fishing adventure to, hiking mountains and everything in between. So, we know that everybody's different. Everyone's looking for something new and a new hobby or to come and try or just meet new people. So, yeah, that's what we feel is important.
Yeah, I noticed that it's a tragic experience of, I think, a lot of people, once they've transitioned out, as they get a bit older, that they've lost connections, they've lost contact, say, with those people they grew up with or their older friends, school friends, and so on. And sometimes life hasn't delivered them or they feel it hasn't delivered them that kind of rich array of friendships and connections. Do you find that where part of your work is to kind of reinstitute those tendrils of connectedness when they've been cut off almost completely?
Yeah, I think it's definitely just giving them opportunities to, I know myself, like we have to pack up every 2 to 3 years. And, it's not like when we're little kids and we can walk up to someone and say, hey, will you be my best friend? It doesn't work like that. You have to really put yourself out there. And, when you're living a bit of a slightly stressful life or you've got anything else going on at home, it can be a massive step to go outside of your home to connect with, other people. So I think a lot of veterans and their families find a lot of comfort meeting other veterans and their families because they get it. They know the lifestyle, they know where they're coming from, and they get how hard it was to sometimes step outside the door. But in saying that, we also have, veterans that are at every single activity, rain, hail or shine. They are there. They love what we do. They love getting involved. But it really depends. It depends on the person, I guess.
Yeah, and I suspect that as you do your job well and as people make those connections, we need less and less of our next speaker here, Joe Losinno, who heads up our psychology services. Psychological well-being, of course, lies at the very heart of what Soldier On seeks to do. Joe, what brought you to it?
Well, I was literally, thank you, Hugh. And I'd like to say hello to our community out there as well. And for me, I was literally born into a family with multi-generational service and who served across both world wars. And my father is a Army veteran and my uncle an Air Force veteran and of the Italian Army, though. And they really brought a strong pride in their military service. So for me, I'm a veteran with 10 years full-time service as a psychologist, and I've deployed on 2 occasions. And when I discharged from the military, I've been working in veteran settings across the private practice setting and hospital settings, including an inpatient hospital, and working predominantly in developing trauma-focused programs for veterans.
Where do you see your work mostly landing? Is it with the sort of the highly publicized area of dealing with veterans struggling with a PTSD or something similar? Or is it essentially left of that where you're trying to maintain a psychological wellness in people, before, a crisis point?
Hugh, that's a great question, and I could spend a lot of time discussing that because that's really important. So I want to take it back a step in saying that where the psychology team are really at the clinical end of the holistic framework that Soldier On provide. Soldier On is almost like a step service of where we create identity, purpose and belonging. And what you said before that, if a veteran can find that when they step out of defence, will certainly enhance their ability to adjust through that transition process. I may talk a little bit about that more. But we know that if we take this holistic approach, that it really enhances the quality of life and well-being and can actually act as a preventative to getting our services. But once people step into our services, we actually do provide direct individual mental health services to current ex-serving members, their families, which includes their spouses and children, and at times extended families. And all our clinicians have extensive training in dealing with complex trauma, particularly within our veteran community. And we also provide group programs, including a parenting program called Tuning Into Kids for Fathers. And that's particularly for veterans struggling to relinquish that military role in the home front. We also run a emotional regulation and an interpersonal skills building group called Homefront Drills, focused on developing skills that assist the veterans struggling to make sense of the world out here to transition into a civilian life. And part of my team is also to teach other health and allied health workers and students across university about the rigours of military service and about the complexities of a veteran transitioning. And we've seen some really great collaborations with universities such as UTS, RMIT, and also the Australian Catholic University.
There's so much to talk about there. I'm going to take it back to John in just a second, but on one of those many elements is about transitioning out of service, separating. How vital is it for long-term well-being for the service member to be able to make a relatively smooth transition to further meaningful employment after service?
That for me, sorry, was it you?
Sorry, that was to Joe first, because then I want to go to you to find out a little bit more about how you do it at Soldier On.
Well, my apologies, Hugh. I heard John. So, look, transitions are fundamental to the veteran because, let's start from the first transition. The first transition is from civilian life to military life, which really requires an absolute rapid acclimatization to an institutional life. Military training and service is designed to change every aspect of the person entering the military, the way they think, feel, sense, believe, and value, and the values that they inhabit, and how they even engage in relationships and how they even fit into this wider community. And this is achieved through the production, and I mean production of disciplined bodies carrying out military labour and waging war. That's their job, is to wage war. Now, we've known about the transition problem since World War I. And yet there is still no effective transition program. There's no retraining available out there for our military personnel to become conventional citizens again. And we know that during the transition period, the veteran is vulnerable and can experience some serious damage to themselves and their families. And what we also know is that civilian life for the veteran is complex because, when things get tough, they tend to rely on their military thinking and they apply their military training to problem situations. And that may not be so helpful out there. So they might fight like hell or run the other direction. And neither are acceptable, even healthy behaviours on the home front after they've transitioned. And so just to really capture this, the truth is, irrespective of the level of belief a current serving member has in their own abilities during active service, many service personnel find transition out of service and assimilation back into life unexpectedly complex. They don't expect it to be that complex. And these exiting service members often find themselves unprepared for the instability of that initial phase of transition and how this period may threaten their sense of self and self-worth. And during this time, they even may struggle with a number of interrelated concerns, including any unresolved or prolonged grief or bereavement over fallen comrades, loss of their previous military identity, nostalgia for the order and purpose that categorise their service experience, a sense of moral injury, confusion about the military's, about military and civilian differences, and even changes in their roles.
You must see this in practical terms, John Hardgrave, as you run the Pathways program. And obviously you're sensitive to all those issues that Joe has just mapped out there. Do you have a sense that sometimes you find people at a very vulnerable point in their life?
Absolutely, Hugh. And Joe's, said it much better than I can as an educated psychologist. No, look, I think, anecdotally, when we talk to people, and you've heard me talk about meaningful employment, it's about finding that sense of purpose after service. And I've got a sort of personal motto that I talk about purpose after service. And where you find that, whether it be in employment, or I'm a big advocate of volunteering as well in the community if you're not going to be employed, finding that purpose after service. When you're in defence, you're part of a team, you've got a purpose as a common goal. And to have that suddenly removed, you need to fill that space with something. And for people who are driven, like most people in the military, moving into the civilian world, finding that new role, it needs to be purposeful. And this is where we find quite a lot of veterans. They get out and they want to move into roles that have a sense of purpose. We see a lot of veterans moving into defence industry because they're still part of the team. They're still working to that common goal. Or they'll move in on the education side of things. A huge amount of veterans move into and study paramedicine because it's that way of continuing to serve the community, or they'll end up, I've got mates who are fireys that I served with, I've got mates who are ambos, I've got mates who are cops. Because all three of those services are providing that service and providing that sense of purpose. So I think it's, remit of me to say that, my program, the Pathways program in isolation, will fix, or not fix, but it provides all the answers. We have to work together with Joe's team and together with Sarah's team, because it's not only that moving from defence, but it's also that then removal of all your mates that you've been serving with. You know, all of a sudden, army life goes on, your platoon or your section still continue on, but you're on the outer, so you need to build that sense of community, which builds that overall wellness. So we work hand in hand with Sarah and Joe's programs to provide that holistic support to that veteran. And what we find is employment, meaningful employment is one of those things that really helps. Now, when we talk about transition to employment might not be what's for everyone. We've got veterans and family members who have got significant barriers to moving back into full-time or part-time employment. But this is where I think volunteering's great. Like, I'm a big advocate for surf lifesaving. I do that on the weekends. Get into that sense of purpose. Get out there into the community and continue to serve, whether it's through employment or through volunteering. Build that sense of purpose after service.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I wonder, Sarah, whether it's been your experience as well that people, as they come for activities, they come for the social connection, but they're also looking a little bit for purpose, whether they're family members or whether they're people who've transitioned out. They might have outgrown their families. You know, who knows? The kids might have grown up, but still looking for exactly the sorts of things there that John describes.
Yeah, finding that community again. And, you know, I experienced an activity with a gentleman that was transitioning. He wasn't ready for employment, and he just wanted something to do. He wanted to try something. He spent all his life, he joined when he was 18, and he didn't know, like, he didn't have a hobby. He wasn't sure on what he enjoyed outside of defence life. And I said, well, that's where I come into play. Come and join an experience that, you know, you might not normally have tried. Come and learn a new skill. Come and do a creative activity. Have you tried yoga? All those different things to, you know, find another sense of purpose before or after or during, you know, finding employment or seeking support in other ways. So, you know, it really depends. And I've also seen families come back together because of activities as well. So, you know, they've spent, you know, so many years very focused on supporting the member, and you know, they'll come along to an activity like a 10-pin bowling night we had a couple of months ago, and there was a whole family, and the parents said it was just so nice to let our hair down, to reconnect together as a family and to laugh and have a really good time without that pressure of having to organise it or worry about what's for dinner or pay for it or anything like that. Soldier On was able to take that away and just give them that opportunity to come and try something. So, you know, a lot of the times we will have people that will come and try sailing, and then we'll link them up with that organisation as well. So, you know, that they can continue sailing or learn to sail and end up buying a boat and all that sort of stuff as well, and finding that new hobby and new purpose in life. So.
Yeah, it's very real to me. A friend of mine I met through Soldier On went on a surfing weekend, and at the end of that, his wife said to the Soldier On representative that was the first time she'd seen her husband smile in 3 years. And so that business of doing stuff and just getting released to just almost be a child again and just have fun.
Just let your hair down and have a great time. And I think, you know, we're so lucky with the jobs that we have that we're able to provide these and hear the feedback from participants. You know, we've had some people say, if it wasn't for that coffee catch-up, I would never have got out of the house, or, you know, I would have never have thought to try it, but I tried it and I loved it, and now I'm doing it full time. And, you know, suddenly they've bought a surfboard and they're doing, you know, they're surfing every weekend. So that's great. That's success for us, is to hear that, you know, they love the activities and they'll try something new and find a purpose.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are, you know, we're all of us are got different personalities, and some people are quite gregarious, and they'll find ways to, you know, to make friends and to sort of pitch in and join in or whatever it might be wherever they go. But I'm conscious that there'll be people who are watching this right now who might be feeling significantly isolated. They may not see it in those terms or want to talk about it in those terms. We're just reaching out to do something very low key, might feel like quite a stretch. To the person who might be listening to that with that point of view, what signal, what message would you like to send to them?
We understand how big of a step it might be for that first time, and, you know, jump on our website and have a look at the activities list and see what sparks your interest. And flick us an email, and a lot of the time we'll meet you at the car park. We'll talk to you beforehand that you come to an activity if it is a really big step. Sometimes an online coffee catch up where you can sit in the background and you can just dip your toe in. We understand what it's like, and we understand that it might be a really big step for you. We will support you through that, and we understand where you're coming from. So know that we're here to help you through that as well. So, and you're more than welcome to reach out to us and have a chat beforehand. So we get it.
Yeah, excellent message. And just a reminder, if you want to post questions to us, you've got that comment section just below on your screen. Please use it. We'll go to your questions and your comments very shortly, and you can send them anonymous if you want to the Soldier On Facebook inbox as well. That's another option. Before we go to the questions, so if I could go to you again, Joe Losinno, Psych. There's a whole range of issues that you discussed, whole range of things that are in the psychological makeup of a member serving or former and their families. For those who might be watching, for whom it really is at the moment a very profoundly difficult time, real struggle. What's your message to that person just watching right now?
That's a great question, Hugh. And the first thing that I need to say that these are really difficult times right now, really difficult times. We have what's happening overseas in Afghanistan. We have the Royal Commission into Suicides. We have the Brereton report, and we also have COVID and the strains of living with COVID at the moment. And all of these things aren't working in isolation. They're all coalescing to create a really difficult period, particularly for veterans who may perceive, who may have already been isolating, who may have already been withdrawn or choosing to be electing solitude rather than engaging. Right now, as we're going through all these things that you're seeing out there are really affecting those three aspects of your identity, three aspects that are really important to who you are, your identity, your purpose, and your belongingness. So what I'm saying to you is to really, and to keep the messaging really short, is to reach out, to find someone safe, another veteran, another mate who you can reach out to have a chat. These are difficult times, and it's just these things just building on top of each other. We're in a period of what I call a potentially moral injurious time. In other words, where, COVID itself is a traumatic event and a global traumatic event. And if we frame it through the language of trauma, it might actually explain a lot of what we're going through. A lot of those strange feelings that we might find it hard to explain, or we don't have a language for. That sense of entrapment because of the lockdowns, that sense of irritability, or that sense of frustration and even worsening depressive moods. I think veterans need other veterans, and I think veterans need to reach out to other veterans. What's really important to acknowledge in this space is that the bonds that are forged as a consequence of our military services are not translatable to the civilian world. These are special bonds. These are bonds that may actually go beyond what we may feel for those important, intimate relationships in our civilian world. And a lot of the people within the civilian world may not understand you. And we get that, really get that. And that's why I ask you to reach out. And if you're someone concerned about someone, reach out right now, please.
Sound advice there. I get the feeling that one of the obstacles people have to come across is the sense that it's pointless. Yeah, so what if I go and talk to some shrink who doesn't have a clue what the hell I've gone through? None of it can ever come to any good. Why do I bother? I'm probably better off just sitting here and, remembering stuff, or kicking the cat, or doing whatever is the entertainment. I mean, I know because I've seen it, but sometimes it's worth just reminding people that things can get better, that there are processes of understanding what you've gone through in a new context to learning new skills about it. And life doesn't have to be shithouse if you're feeling as if it has got shithouse. That's, you've seen that. Describe how you've seen people pick up and, in fact, realize in retrospect that the great trials of their life are more in their past than in their present.
Well, great question, Hugh, and I love the use of those technical terms like shithouse, because I think those are the kinds of terms that we should bring to the vernacular, because it is shithouse, and I could use far more colourful words. Where I see the hope is finding value and meaning in this world. And I think that happens when there's a sense of a foothold within community, when veterans start hearing their voices within our community spaces. So the challenge here, Hugh, is not just for the veteran that's here in this forum, but it's also for the community to come on board and have a more veteran-centric perspective, and to create spaces for veterans to have their say, to have their discourses, because it really comes down to feeling safe in this world. Most of the information about healthy living and what is good psychological health is really based on what works for the civilian majority. And so for the veteran who is, to use another technical term, who's got the best bullshit detector you'll ever find, and the only reason why they have this detector is because they are actually searching. They are searching for people who understand them. But all they get is a replete of pop psychology graphics with feel-good messages containing subtle traps for veterans. Because if you were to read the veteran through this, the veteran is written as if they are living unhealthily, or they are at best a damaged civilian, and a needy one too. So this is the sorts of frames that veterans see themselves. So I see what needs to happen next is to have to create spaces within our community where the veteran can actually hear his own voice or her own voice reflected, and to be felt, seen, heard within these spaces and within these community spaces.
Yeah, that authenticity counts for so much. Thank you so much for that, Joe. Just a reminder, just post your questions in the comments below. We're going to get to them right now. You can send them anonymously to our Soldier on Facebook inbox. Just before the questions, though, we're going to hear from the boss, Ivan Slavich, is the CEO of Soldier On. Here's a very brief video clip of what success, in his view, means for Soldier On.
Every time a veteran or a family member is offered a job interview or takes steps to further their education through our Pathways program, that is success. Every time a veteran or a family member summons up the courage to attend a social connection activity, that is success. Every time someone takes the brave step to reach out and ask for help, that is success. At Soldier On, our success is dictated by the success of our veteran community.
Well, welcome back to our Facebook Live chat here. It's all about how we at Soldier On can support you, and thanks for your patience waiting with those questions, and keep them coming, by the way, your comments as well. A question for John Hardgrave from Beck Rayner. Preparing for a successful transition out of defence should begin way before the member actually starts that process. Is Soldier On working with Defence and the government to help veterans and advocate for support for veterans before they actually leave? John Hardgrave.
Really good question. Fair bit to unpack there. The short answer is yes. Yes, we are. Look, we're engaged in a lot of military bases working with individual units and organisations like the Soldier Recovery Centres. I couldn't agree more, Beck. Transition needs to start 18 to 24 months before you leave. And we recognise that, and we promote that loudly when we're talking to people. Out on the units, we find that quite often the veteran doesn't know they're going to transition in the next 18 to 24 months, especially if it's going to be a medical transition. But it's about capturing them as soon as possible to help, provide that support and that career guidance to say, hey, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? And one of the things I really like about our program is, due to the nature of defence, where you separate from defence may not be where you're going to live. And let's use Adelaide and Brisbane as an example. You might be a born and bred Queenslander, because I'm Queenslander and go the footy, but you've been posted down to Adelaide. On your separation, you're going to move back to where your family is in Queensland. What our program is able to do is link you in with our team in Queensland before you separate, to start looking at opportunities in Queensland, in your home locality. So you're not starting when you get to Brisbane. We're starting pre-transition to look at what opportunities are available. And that's one of the really exciting things about how this operates. And look, we have pathways officers in every state who can support you through those programs.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, John. A question for Sarah from Maria Fox. Which activity is the most popular and why?
That really depends on the area. I know it is in New South Wales. It's when the weather is nice. We definitely have a lot of water activities. So anything on the water revolving around water, surfing, sailing, stand-up paddleboarding, all the rest of it, snorkeling. That's a great uptake there. I know in Perth we have a great cycling club, a Dungeons and Dragons group, which is ongoing. And then Queensland, again, water activities. They have much better weather up there, lucky buggers. And then even like on the South Coast, we have an amazing uptake on our coffee catch-up. So honestly, it really depends on the area, and it also changes. So, that's a big part of what we're doing is we'll always adapt and change. We're not going to flog a dead horse. We'll change and see what the veterans want and what their families want, and we'll adapt to that and make sure that we're providing and getting that uptake and what they want. So, yeah.
I'm so delighted to know that Dungeons and Dragons has a role for people to
talk to the big boss too. He loves to hear that Dungeons and Dragons is still going. He would love to see us have a Dungeons and Dragons club all across the nation. I'm not sure every one of my team member agrees, but they definitely have a good time and they really enjoy that. So that's a great club that they connect with after and during service. So it's really good.
Excellent. So the kind of answer is almost anything can succeed. It depends a little bit on what people have.
Yeah, absolutely.
A question for Joe. It's an anonymous question. My friend is experiencing difficulties after she left the ADF last year. She is currently not willing to ask for help. How can I support her? And can Soldier On do anything to help someone who is reluctant to ask for help?
That's a good question, Hugh. And these are the sorts of questions that our team receive every day. And the short answer is that you're already helping, being there, being present, being witness to her suffering is important. And really, they don't really need to, this is the amazing thing about Soldier On, is the stepped care in Soldier On. And I really feel that a nice soft landing and a safe landing is in a social connections, coffee catch up, or, engaging in one of the activities online or anything to do with Soldier On to build up that familiarity with the Soldier On team. And we've had a lot of success in the past where someone's just turned up to a coffee catch up and just met the team and progressed through the help model to end up with the clinical services and getting the treatment they want. This is a common story. And what I'm going to reiterate is that veterans need veterans, and to be present and as present as possible for your friend without really insisting or pushing, but, those gentle nudges with kindness, with compassion, and also perhaps trying to invite them to more, to environments that they may deem more safe than going straight to a clinical environment, and that might be a social connections event.
Excellent advice there. And obviously this person who's having the difficulties is female, judging by the question. do you encounter reservations from people who might feel as if they're going to go into an overly male environment? They've obviously served in the ADF, which is still predominantly male, but is there a way in which they can get reassurance that it's going to work for her?
Yeah, Hugh, that's an excellent question. The female, so Soldier On has been spending a lot of time recently looking at the female veteran experience, and there is a qualitative difference between the female current veteran and the male veteran. And a lot of female veterans regrettably seem to be relinquishing their veteran status. And that for me is a real, it really is heartbreaking, or not seeking services through the veteran ESOs like Soldier On because they may not feel that we understand their experience. What I can clearly state to the audience and to the female audience, that the Soldier On is committed to the female veteran to the extent where we're now running social connections in working with psychology, are running a female Vet Connect program that sees 40 females across the country doing work, engaging in a social, engaging in a Sarah's probably a better place to explain this, but coming together to create safe spaces, to create a community for female veterans. My team is starting to do research on the unique transition that female vets experience, but not that, what led to the transition. So did they encounter the medical system? What happened during their defence? Was there, the sexual harassment that we hear about? Was there any other, other things that were happening in defence that are very unique to this, to current female serving members? So we are really starting to explore this. My team are predominantly female. And have very strong history in working with females in distress and also female veterans in distress. And they do deal with each case compassionately and with kindness, and they will go at the pace you want to go.
Okay, excellent, Joe. Thank you. Question for John, an anonymous question. Does Soldier On charge a fee to job seekers or get a commission through employers?
You know what? That's a fantastic question. I'm actually glad it came up, because the answer is no. We are not a fee-for-service model or a recruitment company. We work with those pledge companies, which I talked about previously, about providing opportunity to veterans and their family members, albeit still merit-based. But when you apply for a job with one of our pledge companies, they are looking at your application, understanding your history, where you've come from, and the unique factors that service life has and brings with you into that role. So we are not a fee-for-service. We're not a recruitment company. We don't get paid to put veterans in the roles. I want to be very clear about that.
Okay, so question asked and answered. Another anonymous one. This one is for Sarah. Will you be doing more Women's Vet Connect programs? Perhaps, Sarah, you could just tell us what a Vet Connect program is to start off.
Yeah, definitely. And Joe touched on it a little bit there before. And it's something that the Joe's team and mine have worked really hard on providing this year. And we've had some really great successes come out of that. So these are weekends that were offered to 10 women in 4 different locations across the nation. And it was all about bringing veterans together in a comfortable and safe environment and providing them with social connections, activities, but also looking at working towards goals for the future. Joe's team did a really great delivery on our first one, talking about conditions of service, which prompts so many questions from the veterans, and they end up deep in conversation and late for their next activity, which always happens. But it has been incredibly successful, and that program this year was all thanks to the Thine Reid Foundation to provide the funding for that. So Will there be more? Absolutely. If we can secure more funding to be able to provide that program, it's been incredibly successful. We want to see that keep going. So you can always read more about that, the Vet Connect program in our journal. It's actually on our website, a story that was written recently. So go and check out that one as well. But we've done some amazing activities on those weekends. The veterans get to come back 3 times. So it's those 10 women come back for 3 weekends. It's not just one weekend. There was a lot of confusion around that one. They get to come back, and there's some beautiful friendships that have been formed. So, women are stepping outside their comfort zone to be able to try something new, like zip lining and segwaying and kayaking down rapids. And they did that in Melbourne when it was freezing too, by the way. So it's, we're not pushing all the veterans to take part in everything, but it's actually interesting, like 99% of the time they are there and they're, enjoying it and have a really great time. And the staff love seeing those bonds and the camaraderie that have been built within those female veterans. So definitely go check out that story as well. But yes, to answer your question, we hope to be able to continue the program if we can receive some more funding. So fingers crossed.
Excellent. And just to take you back to the person who was trying to support their friend, the woman who was struggling since leaving the ADF last year, but not willing to ask for help. Your advice to the friend might be to get her to do what? To
come along taking, like I said, we know that taking that first step is really hard. And I think in Soldier On, we've realized that social connections can be that first little thing that they might do before they go to Joe's team, before they go to John's team to be able to, seek employment. It's that first little dip in the water and to come along to an activity because, they can come and enjoy something and have a really good time. So if your friend isn't a participant of Soldier On yet, I would be encouraging them to head to the website and make sure that you're signed up as well as a participant. All our participants will receive the invitations to activities that are in their area or that are relevant to them. If we have online activities, we're sending them out everywhere now, which is really great. And then come along to one of those activities. If you want to find out, you can always look at that online calendar as well and see what's coming up, and maybe that's that first little step. It's actually, I really want to go axe throwing. That might be really fun. So yeah, definitely get signed up and come along and encourage. And like I said, we're more than happy to help and talk you through what that activity might look like, or if you have any questions, we're here to support you.
So once you've done your Dungeons and Dragons, you can graduate to the axe throwing and make it a little bit more real. Cool.
We do some really amazing activities. I work with these amazing people that find these things. I don't know how, but I swear they pull it out of the woodwork, and all of a sudden, we're axe throwing and we're doing aerial fit next month, and there's some wild and wacky ones, I can tell you. But we even done, because of a lot of our activities have been cancelled, like our face-to-face activities in lockdown areas have been cancelled, we've done a lot of online activities, and it was only the other weekend that we were making tacos with a lady in Mexico, or gnocchi with a couple in Italy, and then we were learning salsa dancing and all these amazing things. So the team are really great at finding these wild and wacky activities. They got a good job.
Fantastic. Good on you, Sarah. A great question here from Dominic, a question for John. It's a simple one. What is a pledge company, and how does one of those help me find a job?
Sure. So a Soldier On Pledge Company is an organisation that demonstrates their commitment and support for veterans and their families in collaboration with our program. So when we have a pledge company come on board, we ask them to apply and we do a vet, because we want to make sure that they are going to support veterans and their families. And we ask them to address 3 key criteria. And that's how they're going to support veteran-friendly recruitment, how they're going to support retention, which includes training and development, and workplace culture. So they talk to us and they through their application and address these criteria. And quite often we'll work with organisations on developing initiatives within their organisation around veteran-friendly recruitment, retention, and workplace culture. So these pledge companies, they have showed a commitment that they want to support veterans and their families through meaningful employment. So you can go to our website, to the Pathways portal on our website, and have a look at our jobs board as an example, where there's jobs from our pledge companies. If you were to apply for one of these jobs, as I said, we're not a recruitment company. We don't put you in that job. But then we work with you on your resume, your application, interviewing techniques, whatever you might need, and put you in front of that company. That company then views you with that light of coming through Soldier On, with a veteran focus on it. And you go through the interview process as part of a HR procedure. Now, we do advocate for merit-based recruitment, but veterans are great employees. Like for my team, and I think for all of Soldier On, when we hire, one of the first things we look at is, are they a veteran? Are they a family member? We've got to live and breathe the ideals that we expose. So you go to this organisation, and if you're not successful in that application, what you get is meaningful feedback from that organisation for us to work with you on perhaps a skill shortage or whatever it might be, so you're ready next time for that role. What we find all the time, and we get people coming, veterans and family members who come to us and go, look, I've submitted 100 applications and I haven't even had one email back to say that they've received it. Terribly demoralising. What we're doing is we're filling that gap. So if you're not successful, you'll know why, and then we can work with you to fill that gap and to make you successful for the next time, because you don't know what you don't know. And that's a fairly common military saying. And if we can help fill those gaps working with those pledge organisation, then away we go.
And then just very quickly, give us some examples of some pledge companies.
Sure. Look, I think it's really important to acknowledge some of the really big pledge companies. And look, we have over 150 currently signed on to the current pledge. And I know I'm going to miss some because I'm not going to rattle off 150. But it's really important to point out organisations like BAE as an example. They're a fantastic supporter of Soldier On through their veterans employment. Organisations like Thales, all of Raytheon, a lot of our big defence industry companies that have gone, you know, we value defence members in our organisation. And it's not just those big multinationals that I've talked about here, again, like Fujitsu and people like that and Motorola. It's also those smaller privately owned organisations. And I'll use a company here in Queensland called B&R Enclosures. And now Sarah, actually, when she was up in Queensland, came along to a Pathways networking event that was hosted by B&R Enclosures. A Pathways networking event is when we get, and these are held nationally, we get a whole bunch of our pledge organisations in a room with veterans and their families, and you can call it a jobs speed dating event or a jobs networking event, however you'd like to sell it. But it's an opportunity to get veterans and their families in front of businesses who are signed onto this program, who are actively engaged in wanting to recruit veterans and their families. Now, B&R Enclosures are a family-owned business who build, and when I say enclosures, they build cabinets that fit electronic fit-outs. They fit data racks. They build bespoke cabinets for the Navy on some of their ships, the ECM resistant on springs and stuff like that. But here's an organisation that's family-owned who go, we value veterans in our business and what they can bring. We had a Pathways networking event at their business, and that resulted in, off the top of my head, 3 or 4 interviews with 2 people that I know are now employed from that in B&R Enclosures in the business.
Okay, I'm going to cut you. Yep. Yeah, I'm going to cut you off there a little because I've got a couple of questions to get through, but I hope
Sorry,
Dominic,
Hugh, I can talk all day on this.
Yeah, which is great. And I hope, Dominic, that helped answer your question and encourage you to have a crack at it. A question from Melanie. It's for Joe. From what I've seen, one of the gaps in the system is where there are veterans who still feel shame about their mental health, and these are the ones slipping through the cracks. Are there plans in place to work on reaching out to those who may not have been in touch or not engaged in support services previously or recently? How do you get hold of those who are not engaging? Now, that I guess is the essence of the question, Joe.
That's a great question, Hugh, and that is a great question, and perhaps the question of the moment that we're in. This is not going to be an easy solution to it. So I don't want to just riddle off things that are not going to be helpful in this space. But again, I go back to the help model. I go back to providing a holistic framework that other organisations like government can take towards the veteran space, where we've got a stepped process of care, where people can enter in a place where they could feel safe and a safe soft landing, all the way up to providing that really critical care. I just want to really emphasize this. The reason why we've come to this point, I think, is because we celebrate the Anzac hero from the past, but seem and appear somewhat indifferent or even lack awareness of the present Anzac heroes, who we expect as a society just to get on with it. And I think this is the real social injury. That's the hyper of invisibility and lack of awareness of our veteran needs. So to answer that question, what we probably need is a whole of community response. And we at Soldier On are very much part of that response. You know, many of the veterans I speak to say they come out of the ADF already disadvantaged. And some of them sadly say their service counts for nothing and is and taken for granted. And there is no way there's no way at the moment in the community that honours on a daily basis or uses their knowledge and experience for all our benefits, for the whole community's benefits. And moreover, there's nothing we've created to allow the veteran to experience into our society. And their experiences tend to get left at the door as it closes behind them as they leave the ADF. And so our veterans get lost in plain view. Now, I keep saying that whilst the social injury for the Vietnam veteran was the very public vilification, which is both demoralising and a traumatic encounter, the social injury for our modern veteran is the invisibility and indifference. So I really, the challenge here for everyone and every year so, and I know that Soldier On has already started, is to engage with the community, to find these spaces within the community for our veterans to hear their own voices and to have safe spaces where veterans can actually find other people who sound, look, feel, and reflect back themselves.
Excellent stuff, Joe. One last question is all we've got time for now, one for each of you. Can you each share an experience you had with a veteran in your job that made a difference in their life? John.
Oh, look, there's so many to choose from. Look, I think one that really sticks out for me is there was a super intelligent a guy who came out of the intelligence corps, and he was intelligent. There you go, military intelligence. Who would have thought? And I worked with him overseas as part of my contracting job, and I'd sort of lost touch with him. And he stumbled across me again and shot me an email saying, "Hey, look, I'm working back in Australia. I don't want to do the gig anymore. Really struggling to get a job. The same old story. I've sent my resume out to hundreds of people, haven't had a response." He was driving Ubers, and I said, "Look, mate, come to the office. I just want to catch up with you again, and let's have a chat about what qualifications you got, how we can leverage your military experience and the experience you've had post-defence into a resume and a cover letter and using our pledge companies to get you a role." And he came in, and it was just good to catch up with a mate. But the experiences he had in defence and the experiences he had post-defence, he just didn't know how to sell himself. And we had him into a job the next week. As soon as we put his experience onto paper and put it to some of our pledge companies to say, "This is this guy, he's looking for work, have you got a role?" It actually came to a bit of competition between 2 or 3 organisations who wanted his experience, who valued him as a veteran, the experiences he'd had, and he was working the next week. And his response back to me was like, "I can't believe it was that easy when I came to you after the failings he'd had doing it himself. And that's not to say that, every veteran's going to fail to find themselves a role by themselves. That's not the case at all. There's plenty of well-talented veterans out there who can secure their employment. But to leverage our network and to leverage our experience, he was at work next week. And for me, it hit home because he was a mate as well. And so I knew his experience and I knew exactly sort of where he'd been. So that for me was probably one of my favourite experiences about being able to support not just a veteran, but also a mate. Great story.
Great story. What about you, Sarah?
I think there would be a number, and I'll put them collectively in a little barrel for you. But definitely after the Women's Vet Connect, there was a couple of women that approached me or approached the team and to say, thank you for understanding and thank you for getting it and thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's done more than what they originally thought it was going to do, and thank you for providing me friends. And I'm just thinking, really, like that is so amazing that we are able to provide, a weekend away and that you got so much out of it. And we received some beautiful feedback. I often sit here crying in the corner because it's just so beautiful to think, we can make such a difference in veterans' lives. So, yeah, and we're so proud of our veterans that, when they do take that step to come and join us and come along to a coffee catch-up or whatever it is. So, yeah, so many stories, Hugh. I could talk for hours, but John talks enough for all of us.
It's fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. And Joe, what about you?
For me, it's pretty simple. The choice is to live, and then not only to live, to then feel and inhabit the words "I love you" in their major relationships.
Wow. Yeah. Fantastic, Joe and Sarah and John. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. So everyone who, far more importantly, sort of logged on to be part of this, you're really the whole purpose of this exercise. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us and to put your questions. And we hope we satisfied some of them. We didn't get to all of them. I'm conscious of that. If you want to know more about how Soldier On can support you, start on the website, soldieron.org.au. There are phone numbers there you can ring. There are lots of people who are just dying to chat with you to see what your reality is. And it doesn't matter whether you're fully engaged and just joining in because you want to help others, or if you think it's time that you just wove yourself back into an organization that you know is going to care about you and take an interest in what's happening to you, just reach out to us. And that reminder again that Soldier On looks after current and former ADF personnel and their families. So if you don't feel you need it, make sure that your family members, are given that chance to do it. Thank you all. It's been a great privilege to be with you. I'm Hugh Riminton, and I just love this organization. Till next time.